Hello, 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 and welcome to Project Possible, a podcast with me, Rich Leigh, where we talk to incredible people about who they are, why they are who they are, the challenges and obstacles they've had to overcome, the adversity they faced, the successes, the highs, the lows. And in short, I want you, the listener, the viewer, to see something of yourself in the people that I speak to. Today's episode is slightly different. It's the first time I've done it, and it's actually just an episode of me talking to the camera. And I thought it was important because I have sold my business to do this. This is now my full-time thing. And I'm incredibly passionate about this and what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. I want this to create some good. That sounds corny, but that's what I want. I want to put positivity out into the world. And in recent life events, I talk about it in the podcast. If you follow me on social media, you'd have seen me talking about my brother's suicide, my youngest brother, Jordan, in February. And I've actually, it's funny, I released an episode on Monday with Emmanuel Sanubi, stand-up comedian, and it's the first one. And for some reason, since then, I know how passionate he was about the podcast and how much he wanted me to do well with it and how supportive he was. And I know it's been a hard few days since, just knowing that he's not here for me to pick up the phone to or just text and say, hey, what do you think? Or I think he would have loved Emmanuel. He was also a bouncer, as well as other things. So it's been a hard few days. It's been a hard 7 months, and every day is difficult. But I'm doing, it just does makes you reevaluate life. And not every episode is going to be talking about Jordan extensively. I don't think that's any fun for anybody. Probably most of all myself. Obviously, nobody wants people forgotten. Life was hard before he made that decision. As I'll get into in this, our upbringing wasn't wonderful. It wasn't the easiest, I should say. And, there was obviously happiness and things like that, but, lots of challenges too. So I'm excited to give you this episode, which is kind of a raw episode, me looking at what I'm doing and why, and talking about my successes. I've had many businesses and a best-selling book and various other things. Challenges as a dad, as a young dad. I was 18 when my first was born, and various other things, but just this drive to keep moving, keep going. I am incredibly ambitious. I want this to do so well. I look at podcasts out there and I'm inspired by your Paul Brunsons, your Chris Williamsons, and Rogan and Elizabeth Day and Alex Cooper and all of these people that have just done incredible things with their podcast. I'm aware that I have a few more responsibilities than some of those people, and that life isn't quite as straightforward. It isn't for anybody, actually. That's an unfair thing to say, but some of these people were famous first, and I likened this to, there's a big stone at the top of a hill, and I've got to get that stone moving. And at first it's going to be me, and I'm pushing it with everything I've got. And then some of you will come, and you'll help me to start rolling that stone. And soon it'll just roll and roll and roll. But it's going to take time. So you can help me with that. The metaphorical pushing of the stone could be you sharing this episode with just one person you think might like it. Send the link, send the Substack link. That's projectpossible.substack.com. Go there, sign up. That's where I'll be sending weekly updates to you all with the episodes, behind the scenes stuff, ways to get involved, giveaways, all of that good stuff. So if you would like to be that person, stand beside me and help me set this stone moving, then that's how you can do that. Leave a review, share it, make sure you subscribe. All of those things are helpful. The movement here, I got a lovely message the other day from a former colleague of mine, Ang Harrod, who said, this isn't a moment, it's the start of a movement. And they've talked about the whole thing about being a possibilist. It's like an optimist without the blinkers on. It's not like you can't see the challenges, you just try anyway. And I think most of us would like to think of ourselves as possibilists, if we really think about it. If you're following this, if you're supporting this, you're a possibilist. You're somebody that wants to achieve and can see that there are challenges. You want to be happier, more fulfilled, healthier. They're the three things I always say. Happy, or healthy, happy, more fulfilled. You want to be those things. The question's always how, when life gets in the way. So join me. Stand beside me. Let's get this stone moving. I think you can do some real good. That's everything from me. Thank you for the reaction to Emmanuel's. I know it's only been a few days at the time that I'm recording this. It's only been 3 days, but lovely response so far. It's from a cold start again, and Emmanuel's episode it was a lot of fun. So I hope you enjoy it, and I hope you enjoy this episode too with me. I guess I'll do the thing. Without further ado, I bring to you an interview. Nah, just me. Just me, old Rich, talking to camera. Thank you very much, and I'll see you on the other side. Hi, I'm Rich Leigh, and this is Project Possible, a weekly podcast all about positivity, optimism, hope, challenges, perseverance, all that good stuff. We all want to be happier, healthier, more fulfilled. The question is how? And every week I speak to incredible people from the world of entertainment, sport, business, academia, and more to talk to them about their successes, their challenges, what took them from somebody with an idea, a goal, to making that goal, dream, possible. You see? So the whole thing is, how do we get to the places we want to get to? I want to understand the challenges. I want to understand the hardest bits, because then I, selfishly, and you, as a listener or the viewer, can hopefully see yourself in the stories that are told and the insights. And so far, I've spoken to incredible people, the likes of Succession star Brian Cox. I hate reducing him to Succession because he's a double Laurence Olivier Award winner. He's an actor with an absolutely incredible CV, but obviously probably best known to recent or modern generations for Succession. So Brian Cox, Paralympic champion, the legend is Ellie Simmonds. That was a wonderful conversation. The inimitable reggae source founder, Levi Roots, and many more. And again, speaking to each of these people, it's understanding who they are, why they are who they are, and I think we can each learn a lot from that. And each conversation uncovers different ways we can all think bigger about what's possible. And possible to me is, it might not be something you can achieve today, tomorrow, next week, next year, but are you pointing in the direction that you want to go? Are you pointing in the direction of possibility? It sounds airy-fairy almost, and it's not. You can't get anywhere near that goal or dream you have without taking that first step, that second step, those bigger steps. Maybe it means changes. Maybe it means scary changes. Maybe it doesn't. But that's what this podcast is to me. And today I'm going to be doing a solo episode. It is all about the pursuit of passion and purpose. And I'm not just doing it because it's alliterative and sounds fun when you say it. I think I'm going to be talking a little bit more about some of my experiences, and hopefully, if you stick around, you'll find out why maybe that's useful or important. I want to explore themes that keep coming up in my own life and in the stories of the people that I've spoken to. And that is passion, and that is purpose. Now, why? Why me? Why now? So I'll do a quick CV. I have worked in PR, or had worked in PR for 18 years. So since I was 20. Before that, I was a personal trainer. I had my first child, I've got 4, when I was 18. Soon to be 19, but just got in before my birthday. And that obviously shapes a man. That changes things. So it was around the time when the credit crunch hit. And so I started working in the gym from 2006, 2008, credit crunch, or around that time, and things became pretty untenable. Clients were saying, "Hey, Rich, you're quite expensive. You're a luxury." These are people with the conversations I'd have to people about personal training were, maybe don't go out for a night out, and the money you save, that money that you might save on that night out, spend it on a weekly session with me. And other trainers do the same thing. So you're both then building good habits of maybe not drinking to excess, but also then saying, hey, come spend that money and time with me and let's improve your life. Let's point in a positive direction. But that was pretty untenable with a newborn/young child. So I weirdly found my way into PR and public relations. I worked in it for 18 years, mainly the consumer side of things, so working with some incredible brands and some incredible entrepreneurs and some celebrity type people. And I loved it. I started my own agency when I was 27 and built it to a successful company, at its largest, dozens of employees, and making, to be crass, millions of pounds. We did very well. And to me, the thing entrepreneurs always talk about when they talk about money is, oh yeah, we made this. It's like, yeah, but it quite quickly and just as easily goes back out in terms of staff costs and the cost of running a business. It's the whole turnover is vanity, profit is sanity thing. So we were award-winning, did some incredible things. I ran that company for 10.5 years before I decided this year, the beginning of this year, to look into selling it. And the reason being, I wanted to focus on this, on Project Possible, on the podcast. The first 2 series have been successful. We've been viewed millions of times now on YouTube, that content. It charts pretty much every episode on the Apple podcast charts. And I just thought, I'm going to kick myself if I don't run at this. And then, and here's where it takes a slightly sad turn. I am one of 5 children. And my youngest brother, Jordan, he took his own life in February. It's the first. And we were really close. My family's close anyway, but we were really close. And I was something of a father figure to him. I won't go into the reasons too in-depthly, but I was almost 10 years older than him, and I saw it as my role to help him to become as good a man as he could possibly be, I guess. We've got shared tattoos, and his note to me, his suicide note did say, to the dad I never had, which is painful for me and others, no doubt. But it shows what our relationship was. This happened in February. I was due to be having a conversation with the eventual buyers of that agency 3 days later. So he took his own life on February the 7th, the Friday, and I was due to be having a conversation on the Monday. Now, I still kept that conversation in the diary, and I think it was important to. I wanted to make sure that I turned up, and I'd already started that process. Now, the last few months have been, I'm recording this in late August. The last few months have obviously, for me, for my family, for everybody around, been incredibly, incredibly difficult. It's an enormous hole in our lives, and I still feel like I feel the space that he should still inhabit, if that makes any sense whatsoever. I was on a plane not long after his death, and a friend of mine had invited me out to see him in Norway, to stay in a cabin. I'm very lucky. I'm very, very lucky to have such incredible friends. And I was sat there on the plane, empty seat beside me, and I could just feel, it's like if I put my hand out, I know where his thigh would be. I know the size of the man. There's a photo, you can't see it, but there's a picture of me and him right beside me. And it's been hard. I lost myself a little bit. I certainly drank too much. Me and Jack Daniels, like that. Put on weight, didn't train, didn't look after myself, and generally didn't see a reason to, which is awful because, again, I'm a dad of 4 now. Anybody with teenage children knows that those relationships can be quite complicated too. I'm a divorced dad of 4, so 3 children with my ex-wife and 1 with my wonderful new partner. So yeah, my span of children is My eldest is 18, almost 19, 14, 8, and 1. So I really can't be selfishly losing myself as much as you want to in that moment. And I can't be the person that just solely turns to drink, which I did. I'll be completely honest. It numbed me, and it was easy to get through the nightmares easier. Sleeping tablets didn't seem to touch the sides. I did go to the doctor for sleeping tablets. They barely did anything. And I think with these things, it's just trying to work through. And everybody keeps saying, it's time, give yourself time. I'll never be the same person again. And the reality is, I should have started this. This podcast is probably a couple of months later than it should have been. Not this particular one, but the series. Because I was waiting to feel normal again. I was waiting to feel like I used to. And the reality is I never will. I am a changed person. We are all changed for this. Suicide impacts everybody around that person in ways that you don't see, ways that change over time, in powerful physiological and neurological ways. I developed, my partner likes to call it some form of kind of narcolepsy, where I'll just get tired and I guess and fall asleep, want to fall asleep while driving and having to stop and swap seats or pull over and nap for half an hour and keep a constant supply of Red Bull and things like that. And my sleep's been all over the shop. Obviously not helped by drink and diet and exercise not being perfect, or not perfect, nobody's perfect, but better. And I guess I liken that to, if you break a bone, your body needs to heal. And maybe there's something in our brains that needs that same thing. Something quite traumatic and tragic, as awful as it sounds, we did. There were obviously many signs, and I tried my best. And that's the gut punches when you try your best and it doesn't. What was that song? When you try your best and you don't succeed. To help that person. So anyway, I'm going to bring it back up now to say, all I've got is positivity. All I have is a goal to make this as successful as it possibly can be, because I've done it before. I wrote a best-selling PR book. I created a website called PR Examples that became the UK's #1 PR blog. I then sold that. It's now called Famous Campaigns. Go and have a look if you're in any way interested. It's a lot of fun looking at PR stunts, campaigns, creativity, brand-led things like that. So my CV is pretty good. I've done a lot of things. Lots of household name brands and people you would have heard of, and some that I certainly. I think I joke that I'm under about 1,000 NDAs, and that's a non-disclosure agreement. They basically say, "Hey, Rich, the work that we're paying you for, don't ever talk about that, because outside of your company and your agency, because we'll come down hard." So there's a lot that I can't actually publicly talk about over 18 years of working in communications, where you're helping people not just build their profiles and their reputation, but also protect that reputation too. So sometimes things go wrong. I've got an awful lot of experience in and around that area. But again, 10.5 years into run the company, I thought, I feel like I'm done here. I feel like I've achieved everything that I want to achieve, and I have to set myself a new goal. And as I say, it might be a stupid idea. This might be a terrible idea to become a full-time podcaster. Like, who do I think I am? I'm fortunate that obviously the business is worth something, and there's somebody that wanted to buy it, and that means taking the team, the clients, all of those things. So I've been helping with the integration of that. But in reality, this is what I did it for. This is what I want to do. So I wanted to talk today particularly about pursuing that passion and a form of purpose. And I turned to trusty ChatGPT to help me kind of plan this episode a tiny bit, because otherwise you're going to get a waffly Rich, and nobody needs or wants a waffly Rich, as the last 10 minutes or whatever it is I've been talking probably show you. I can go off on tangents. Oh, I love a tangent. So let's try and bring some semblance of order to this. It says to me to open up just to describe what passion and purpose mean to me. And of course, they're two different things. Passion to me is doing the things that you love. Simply it. Whether it's for money or not. Doing the things that you love and are passionate about. Now, I can't tell you how much it fills me up to be sat opposite somebody and just hearing their story and finding out who they are and why they are who they are. I think people are endlessly fascinating. I'm ever curious. Everybody listening to this, watching this, knows something I don't. Knows an awful lot of some things I don't. And selfishly, again, I want that. There's that saying, learn like you're going to live forever. Live like you might die tomorrow. And another friend of mine who's in his 70s says, curiosity keeps him young. It's that thing that, it's like, I don't know that thing. Tell me about that thing. And, I just want to know. I don't care what it is. If it's about the way something works or about an idea that you've had or about a choice you made and how it turned out. I'm endlessly interested. So it's probably a good thing that I found podcasting and interviewing. And I mean, I'd always wanted to do that since listening to the first Ricky Gervais podcasts, the ones, the XFM ones with Carl and with Stephen. I thought, what an incredibly wonderful medium. What a beautiful thing that it's not unedited, obviously, but you can convey things with little to no boundaries. Of course, our own boundaries, but it's unfiltered. I've spent 18 years working in and around the media where, the pinnacle of client success is, or was, getting somebody on, I don't know, BBC Breakfast or Sky News, where they are forced within 2 minutes, sat on that sofa, to distill everything about themselves and their ideas and the thing that they need to talk about. And add to that 90% of people are nervous before they go on to do those things, so they don't always hit the mark. I always used to say, go on with 3 things you want to say. If you hit 2 of them, you've done a great job. But that's no way to have a conversation, is it? Not really. We get to find a snapshot of a thing, of a person, but then it just adds up to content. It just adds up to, what does that really teach us? Oh yeah, cool, we found out that very, very basic top line thing about that person, that idea, that project, that company, that book that they might be promoting, whatever it is. But it's not like this. It's not that pure conversational, let's get to know each other kind of way of communicating that new media is doing a great job of. Traditional media's changed. I could speak about this endlessly. I won't. It has changed enormously, not just in the 18 years that I've been working in and around it, but in the last 2 years, since the advent of AI, it's changed massively. In the 5 years before that, it changed massively because of Google search. Or the 15 years before that even changed massively because of Google search. And companies like mine would try and ensure that companies would rank higher for certain key terms, which means, if you're looking for, I don't know, a new dishwasher, and we've got a dishwasher client, how do we make sure that when you Google, you find them? Well, there are ways, and that's what we did. And the media's changed because people don't pay for it anymore. That's fundamentally it, and that's freeing for the consumer of media, not so good for the people that make it. So it's changed. Your Substacks, your journalist that used to be the tech editor at Ince, I think The Guardian, they've now got successful Substacks where people subscribe to them because of their foundational, their knowledge, their personality, the way they write, or people obviously subscribe to things like this because of hopefully the conversations that I had, and new ways of earning are fascinating. So, passion to me, doing what you love. Purpose is the why you do those things. And since Jordan, my purpose is, again, this sounds so un-British, and I will stop saying that at some stage, but it's true. We have this need to caveat everything. This can do some good. I get messages all the time about the previous series talking about how it's helped people, motivated people, inspired people. It's some lovely messages from a lady that had a horrible accident and saw herself in some of the guests and found some positivity and some kind of get up and go as a result of those conversations. And that's massive. You know, if anything good can come from the tragedy of the last 6 months, and if any good can come from the upbringing that I had, the young life that I had, which was not a good one, it was not a safe, secure, positive environment. It was the exact opposite. You know, there was domestic violence. There were things around you as a child that you shouldn't have around you. You know, there were lots of prison visits and things like that. Yeah, and when you're from that kind of lower socioeconomic background, you don't aspire to much. You hope that you can be more. And for me, sport was the thing that I always thought I'd do. Rugby, particularly. I was never quite good enough. I was good, but never quite good enough. But it gave me an awful lot of amazing things, and the coaches that I had, and the teammates I had, the people around me. You know, it does. It gives you discipline and hard work and desire to work together as a team, because you can't succeed without each other. And I took that into how I run my business. You know, you're there with and for each other, truly, and those words mean something. You know, with and for, because I'm going to have a bad day. I need somebody to pick me up. They're going to have a bad day. I'll pick them up. I'm there for them, and in every possible way, because companies don't work. Companies are just an assembly of people, and especially in what I did, PR, we typically sell people's time and their expertise. Now, if they're not happy, they're not going to do great work, and if they're not doing great work, clients won't be happy and they won't stay. So what's the opposite? A happy team doing great work with happy clients. That's the key to a successful business. Easier said than done, but when you run it with that mindset, it is that simple. It is. If your team aren't happy, if you're not happy, you're not going to be at your best. And I mean, happiness isn't this thing to, this one thing to achieve and then you've achieved it forever and well done. It's obviously, you're going to oscillate between, various emotions. Any given my last few months, any minute, any second, you could. But purpose is that thing that keeps us going. It's the reason why. And my reason why is to do some good, is to bring people along. Now, it's called Project Possible. It used to be called The Starting Line. The starting line was because we don't choose where we start. I talked about my background a tiny bit. We don't choose where we start, but we choose where we go. And that was on the basis of a video I once saw, I've watched a number of times, with a coach. He's got about 100 kids in front of him, and he says, they're on a racetrack. They're on a 100-meter racetrack. He says, whoever wins this race gets $100. But before we start, I've got a few questions or statements to make. If they apply to you, take 2 steps forward. Things like, if your parents are still together, take 2 steps forward. Questions like that. If you've never had to financially contribute to the household, take 2 steps forward. And eventually, before the race has even started, there are some people still back at the starting line. That's probably where I would have been. And some people 30 metres ahead. Now, it's a great visualisation of, we didn't do anything to deserve the start that we get, good or bad. It's what we do with it. Because those people 30 metres ahead are probably going to win that money. We're going to have to race like hell to try and catch up and possibly still fall short. But find some pride in how we pulled ourselves together in a bid to get to that. So that was the starting line. But Project Possible, to me, I don't want to bash people over the head because of their upbringing. That was never my hope, and I hope it never came across like that. But I want to come to this with a more hopeful, I guess, vibe, like the vibes. I'm 37. I want to come to this hopefully. I want people to listen and think, yeah, I can do something. I can achieve that thing, whether it's big or small. And it actually started with an interview I had with the comedian, poet, podcaster Robin Ince in the last series of The Starting Line. I was taking him after the interview to Cheltenham, to the town hall where he was to be speaking at Cheltenham Science Festival with Professor Brian Cox. They do a BBC podcast together. And as we pulled up and we were saying our goodbyes, he said, do you know what you remind me of? I was like, oh, Christ, go on. And he said, have you ever read the book Factfulness by Hans Rosling? And I have. And I'd forgotten this part. And he said, Hans Rosling described himself as, I'm not an optimist, I'm a possibilist. Now, Robin Ince said, that's you, Rich. Everything, the whole conversation so far is possibilism. You're a possibilist. It's about what you can achieve. So it's optimism, but without the blinkers on. It's realistic optimism. And I've not met anybody yet that doesn't want to be a possibilist, that doesn't want to dream bigger, better, but also act upon it. And possibilism to me is get on board, join me, join what we're trying to do here, which is bring about some good. If you want to be a possibilist, go to the website and sign up to the mailing list. Be part of something where I'm going to be doing live events. I'm going to be doing live shows eventually. Those things. Let's build something of a community, however big or small, and realize that together we can do amazing things. And again, that sounds corny as hell. If I had an American accent, you wouldn't question it, because they do optimism really well. They do positivity and possibilism really well. But let's take a leaf out of our transatlantic cousins' books and try and think, where can we come together, and where can we, how can we create change for ourselves and for others? So that's passion and purpose to me. GPT, I'm just looking now just to make sure I'm still on track. Said, what question or frustration in your own life led to you exploring this theme? I think and hope I've very much just spoken to it, which is there is a fear, or even just a kind of an underlying feeling when you come from a background like mine, and like many of you will have potentially had, that you aren't worth that much, that you should stay in your lane, sit back, appreciate what you have, which might not be a lot, and shut up, basically. Just, you'll live your life, you'll do this job, or you won't, and you'll be grateful for it. And that's a really frustrating place to be when you're ambitious, when you want to achieve something, but you maybe don't know how, because maybe you don't have the people around you to achieve just yet. But that's where shows like this come in. That's where interviews and, hearing guests like you will hear on this show, if you go back to previous ones or listen to the future ones, you'll hear it can be done. And knowing that somebody else has done something, whether it's related to what you want to do or not, shows that it can be done. And these people have overcome enormous challenges. I mentioned Ellie Simmonds. Ellie was put up for adoption day one of her life because she was a dwarf. Because of her, the start in life that she didn't ask for. Because of that, she was put up for adoption. Now, her life took an insane path to being one of the most genuinely inspirational people I've ever met in my life. And, I am a big one for not allowing circumstances to make victims of us all. Sure, the last few months, I've cried, and I've stayed in bed, and I've drank myself into a stupor, and I've not been the best to myself, and possibly not been the best for other people around me. Can I let that be the case forever? What am I going to do about it? If we all did that, if we all labelled ourselves, we're anxious, we're depressed, we're this, we're that, we're ADHD, we're all of these labels that we constantly put on ourselves. Okay, let's say that we are all of those things. So what? What are you going to do now? Does having a label help? Some people say, yeah, it does. It means that I know that I'm not alone. Well, you're not alone anyway, for a start. There are always people that need and want that companionship. I mean, I sadly found out recently, a third of men say they don't have a friend. Now, we need to work on that. As men, we need to work on that. As people, we need to work on that. We need to support each other, and we need to make the effort, because it's all too easy to just fall over and say, "Oh no, I'm injured. I'm well. I'm this. I'm that." It's like, well, I don't buy it. I don't buy it because, not just because I've lived through lots of awful things, sadly, but I don't buy it for you, because that's going to be what you amount to. You're not going to try harder than that. Don't you owe it to yourself and to the very miracle, the fact that you're here? Again, it sounds so corny, but the fact that you're here, the fact that you do have people almost certainly that love you, and you're just going to accept that, well, that's my lot. I can't do better than this. I don't want to do better than this. I certainly, I fear doing better than this. We shouldn't fear trying to change ourselves for the better. So that's my frustration. I mean, you can probably hear it. It's a frustration. I think that in the last 10, 15 years, there's almost applause for people that say, oh, I can't do it. I'm this, I am anxious. I'm too anxious to do that thing. And people get an arm put around them. Like, okay. We all need support. We all need those moments. Are you going to do that? If we all did that, the world never moves. It never changes. It never improves. Nothing gets better. And you can be part of something better for not just yourself, but other people. So I do have a frustration. This, I said the other day, this podcast started almost as a bit of a love letter to my family, and particularly to Jordan, who obviously has been for a long time going through hardship. And I hoped and prayed that there would be some positivity, something that people can take from this and say, if those people can, then maybe I can too. And that's the purpose that I touched on. There's the frustration that led to this. I'm just looking through the GPT plan for this, and it's how does my story connect to the listeners? Well, I guess my hope is that I'm relatable. I am a flawed 37-year-old divorced dad of 4. Now, don't put that as your dating profile, kids. I've had successes, I've had failures. I am real. I've done lots of good. I really hope I've helped to raise more than £1 million for children's charities over the years. I've done lots of good, but equally I've failed in lots of ways. There's no one way to be a good parent, and I've tried my best there, but not always succeeded. I didn't have the best example or examples of that. I didn't have the best examples of finances. I didn't have the best examples of how not to allow anger to turn into violence and those things. I didn't. Just role models were few and far between, if at all. And then when I think about other interview podcasters, I think they're wonderful, and I listen to lots of them. But in many cases, they have people on that like, get up at 4 a.m. for the first of your 2 runs that day. Go and make sure you eat this thing. Make sure you take this supplement. Make sure you drink that, potion. And it's not real. And lots of these people that they're speaking to, and the presenters, the hosts themselves, don't have responsibilities that amount to, well, maybe that's not something I can do. And you'll be listening and watching, and you'll think about the responsibilities you have. You think, how do I fit that into my life? Well, you just do, you fat mess, those kind of people. It's like, no, I don't think positivity could or should be limited in such a way that, you need to sacrifice everything to succeed even. So I really hope that there's some relatability here, that I'm just an idiot that makes things up as I go along. I have been successful in business. I have been successful in pretty much everything that I wanted to be within the industry that I chose / I fell into. Did lots of amazing things. I want to go on to do lots of amazing things as well. I'm sure that some things will fail. This could fail. But I'm in a position where I can, very fortunately, run at it and see if it will or won't. And, it's the listener, it's the viewer that, coming along with me that makes a success of this or not. And whether I do a good job, it's not the lighting that I've got set up, it's not the microphone, it's not the camera I'm using, it's the messages, it's the stories, it's the insights, it's the, how do we relate to each other. And this is the first solo episode I've done. And that's, I guess, where, I've been a tiny bit fearful of doing this, because, you're laying yourself out there. You're putting yourself out there for people to potentially knock and pull down, because people are very good at that. And it is always, every single time, an insecurity. Every single time somebody wants to nitpick or pull somebody down. The most successful people I've ever met, and I've met lots, I'm not sure how much I love the idea of billionaires, but, park that for a minute. I've met billionaires, I've met very successful people, people that have made enormous differences in the lives of lots and lots of people, people that have achieved, Olympic greatness, pinnacles of human physiological and, cerebral success, and sporting and business, and, all of these things. They want to drop a ladder. They want people to succeed. The three things that the successful people I've spoken to all have in common, and it's interesting actually seeing it. I've only done about 40 episodes, and I appreciate there are podcasters out there with thousands. I'll get there if if it's meant to be, if I do all the right things. But the things they have in common: curiosity, self-belief. They know that they can do it. I don't really hear people talk about imposter syndrome and these things, because even if they feel that way, they know that they can potentially overcome it. And the willingness to drop the ladder and help other people succeed. They want people to succeed. Your boss should want you to succeed. Your manager, the head of your company, your coach, your parents. You as a parent should want your children, your friends, your family. We should all champion each other. And I think we're so quick to pull down. And why? Because there's so many people with unfulfilled dreams, goals, aspirations, and they feel unhappy and insecure, not just in themselves, but in what they've done with their lives to date. But I'm saying, fuck that. Turn it around. You should want other people to succeed just as much as you want yourself or your close loved ones to, because a rising tide raises all boats. It's not a saying for nothing. If we all pull in the right directions, we were all going to want different things from life. There'll be people listening and watching that are like, I don't want to be a bloody podcast host. God, that's not for me. But there'll be things that I do, maybe say, that take you in a direction. Maybe you want to be, I don't know, the best damn kayaker that's ever existed, right? I don't know what that looks like. I don't know why I pick kayaks. There's nothing around me that jumps out. We should want each other to succeed. And how does this fit into the bigger vision for Project Possible, this episode? Well, we're going to be doing weekly episodes every Monday. There's going to be an interview for you to listen to. But I'm going to be dropping some of these in as well. Just over time, my experiences. Go and follow me, RichLeePod, on Instagram. I'm going to be putting videos together of my experiences filming with people, recording with people, the process I go through for this. I guess I want to show you behind the curtain a little bit. One of the questions to help me give some direction to this episode is, how do I deal with doubts about whether I'm on the right path? And I think an easy or good answer here is, I knew I was not on the right path. I knew that towards the end of running my company, I had that gut feeling that wasn't what I was supposed to be doing anymore. And I have dependents. I have huge responsibilities. And of course, you weigh that up. And I did dip my toe into this before while still running my agency, and found some success. And an old friend, client, mentor once said, where there's a trickle, there's a stream. So I had more than a trickle. I thought, this can be not just good, as I felt like it was, maybe is. This can be great. And if, I look at other podcasters and I think, why can't I do that too? There's no good reason that I, with, a semi-half useful brain on my shoulders, head on my shoulders, I'm able, I'm capable, I have a financial freedom as a result of the many years I put in an industry that I entirely devoted myself to. I devoted myself not just to making money in it, but giving back to the community as well. Christ, I did loads of, loads of things from, PR parties where, it was all the money went to charity, and, I organised everything. PR Examples was a massive labour of love, the site that I mentioned that I sold, but reached tens and tens and tens of thousands of people. I think it was 60, 70,000 people a month. There are only 80,000 people working in PR in the UK. So it was, had that massive, exposure, but I barely got paid for that. But it opened me up. It gave me exposure to some amazing people. We built a wonderful community of writers, contributors, and general well-wishers, supporters around that. So that's what I want to do. I felt like I was on the right path then. And then I felt like, actually, what do I have left to prove? What do I have left to achieve besides just making money? And that's not an awful thing. Making money is important. We all need it, right? When you've not had any, and we didn't. And then you do learn the value of it when you do have it. I always used to look at people putting petrol in, and if they looked off to the side, I couldn't fathom it. I was like, how are you not desperately intent on ensuring that number is, stays at or below a certain amount? So I knew I wasn't on the right path, and I think this is it, just in my gut. And I was out filming with somebody yesterday. Went to Cambridge University to speak to an academic, speak to a doctor, an incredible man. He's just written a book called Goliath's Curse. It's actually just behind me. I'm building a bit of a selection, or a collection even, of books of people that have been on this podcast. And I really hope that wall eventually ends up absolutely packed with books from amazing people. But I was there, and I just had that feeling, this is right. This is what I should be doing. And it's rare in life you get that validation, that almost immediate confirmation that you're where you should be. And it's lovely when you find that in a relationship. It's nice when you find that with friends, where you just sit there and you think, this group of people, man, these people, like, I love them. And I think we don't say that enough. I'm quite overt with my love for my friends and family. And again, I'm not ashamed of it, especially since seeing how people do rally and support and, show their care in the worst of moments. And, we've had that, and Christ, I wish that Jordan could have seen his funeral. I gave a eulogy. God knows how I kept it together. I think I kind of disassociated a tiny bit, but the room was packed. There were people outside. There were speakers, for the people that couldn't fit in. I wish you could have seen that. I wish you could have seen the love and support and community, particularly from the rugby community that he had. I mean, he played his last two clubs, and sorry to go on I said I loved a tangent. His last two clubs were Old Cents, so Old Centralians in Gloucester, and Old Cryptians. Now, they came together, clubs don't do this, they came together to create a shirt that's right beside me. It's half and half each jersey with Smith, my surname. So I'm Rich Leigh, but I'm Rich Lee Smith. Lee is my middle name. With Smith and 7, his position, open side flanker on the back. And just, that love and outpouring and support and all of those, you can't buy it. And, yeah. Sorry, as I said. I love a tangent. Practical takeaways for listeners. What questions can listeners or viewers ask themselves to uncover their own passion and purpose? What makes you feel alive when you're doing it? It doesn't have to be snowboarding. It doesn't have to be, archery. It doesn't have to. But is it? What makes you feel something? There's something you do or something about you that makes you feel something. It could be, I bloody love reality TV. I am the happiest when I'm watching, Married at First Sight. It could be that, and that's nothing to be ashamed of, because people have made whole careers and lives out of reviewing reality TV, right? What's that one thing that you do? Is it the gym? Is it you love training? Can you help other people? everybody's got something that they love, something that when they sit down, they do that thing. It could be reading. You're supposed to be an author, or are you a critic? What's that thing that just really fills you up when you think about it? That's your passion, and as for purpose, it's hard for me to I guess extract that from people that are listening or watching. But purpose tends to come from once you found that passion, and once you start to think, okay, well, how do I follow something that's in service of being healthier, happier, more fulfilled, that works for me. And there's a doctor, Bruce Hood, who I heard on the Blind Boy podcast. He's written a book about happiness, and I'd love to talk to him. And he says true happiness can never be found until you're in service of others as well as yourself. That could just mean, that neighbour that you worry hasn't had a conversation with anybody this week. Well, they probably haven't. Just say hi to them the next time you see them. There are lots of different ways that you can be in service to both yourself and other people, and it doesn't need to be this religious idea of being in service to somebody. It doesn't need to be that you just give everything you own and endlessly give and give and give, because that's not a good path to happiness either. Because you could potentially would feel some resentment at some point when maybe that person's not in a position where they can feel the gratitude that you hoped you might feel. So therefore you just give them resentfully, and that's not purpose either. It's when you truly find something that I guess unites that I love doing this with I can continue doing this, and maybe this helps other people too. So I feel like I found mine. It'd be hard for me to guess at yours, but I think you're hopefully following along and thinking, yeah, well, maybe there's that thing. What daily/weekly practices help me stay aligned with mine? Well, there's the whole notion of habit stacking. And habit stacking is where you start your day and you do things intentionally. So whether it is the whole thing of making your bed, I'm a big one for that. But like for me, I know I'm going to have a good diet day if my day starts with protein and creatine. It sounds basic, and it is, but if I do that at 7 o'clock with a nice coffee, not an iced coffee, with a coffee, and I love having a coffee in the morning with Vic, my partner. She and I will just enjoy that, just that 5 minutes. If I start like that, then I'm probably going to do well. It's rare that happens, and then you build habits on top, and those habits could be, okay, well, I know this day at roughly this time I go to the gym. I know that for me it's I've got a calendar in front of me of all the interviews that I do, and then I know what I need to do. I've got a board with everything on that I need to do just up in front of me. Everything's intentional. So those steps, those kind of weekly practices, daily practices, help me to stay aligned with what I'm doing. A small step someone could take today towards a more purposeful life. As I said, the simple thing is, help somebody, be in service to somebody. But really, and I very much appreciate, by the way, I've got zero credibility here, zero academic credentials, no, really, don't listen to me. I'm just a bloody idiot on the internet, with wearing a vest at at 1 p.m. But hey, I'm comfortable. I'm comfortable in my own home. I think, well, what can you do to lead a more purposeful life? Well, so many people just go through life every day and just do the same things, and those habits maybe aren't keeping them on track, or keeping them aligned with purpose and passion, and without really questioning, take a step back from just for a moment and go, am I happy? Am I healthy? Am I fulfilled? Am I happy? Chances are, if you listen to this, then you feel like you've got room to grow, room to move into a, not necessarily a better you, but a changed, different, maybe more content you. And I think that just take a moment every day to say, to appreciate. I think gratitude is enormous. I think we I'm looking around now and I'm thinking, all the things that, we have, the things, right? But think of the people too. Think of the, the support structure that you might have. Think, gratitude, it could be the smallest thing. It could be, obviously some people are show gratitude for just being alive today. There's that at the, at a foundational spiritual level. But there's, I can afford to buy that coffee that I love that 5-10 minutes in the morning with my partner. That's a small thing. Like, if I start writing about gratitude, then I find it hard to stop, because, there are so many things that I'm grateful for, even following so many challenges, hardships, upsets, and difficult moments, and Christ, not even moments, eras in my life. And I try and stay thinking positively, because, the alternative is that you go through those things anyway, and you don't think positively. Other questions. What excites me about the future of Project Possible? I don't know where this goes. That's exciting. It's not just chasing numbers. It's not just, oh my God, I hope that I get millions of people listen every week. It's not just that. Of course it's that. I want to reach as big an audience as possible, because I put the same amount of effort in. I always used to think this with the business. I put the same amount of effort in for a low-paying client as a high-paying client. I may as well chase the high-paying, ones that will stay retained versus the ones that are low-paying and will just be project-based. That is basic. So, of course, I want this to be successful from a numbers perspective. But beyond that, what do I want? I want it to leave a mark. I want people to say that. And this does happen, but more and more will be amazing. That volume of people where this has made a difference to me. This has made I maybe don't do this straight away. I quit my job and I followed my passion and I found my purpose. I am living a life better than the one I had before, or the one I followed before, because I was moved by that conversation you had with X person, or a group of conversations you had about fitness, or I don't know. Insert topic here. Actually, I was really moved by that, and my life's better because that's the purpose I'm aiming towards. That would feel exciting. And as I said, then, I with the High Performance podcast, I heard that they got 5,000 people to do some charity, or a run. Now 5,000. Motivating 5,000 people to do anything is an enormous, incredible achievement. But what that demonstrates to me is community and a sense of purpose and belonging. I want to create that. I'm excited to create possibilists. I say possibilists pull up a pew, again with the alliteration and the P's. But the whole thing is let's bind together, because I feel like we're stronger together. And I don't know what that looks like just yet, but I know that you can do incredible things. Once I built the community with PR Examples, then we were doing parties, then we would, people were helping each other get jobs. People were, oh, hey, can you look at this thing that I've done? What do you think? And I still, it's been a few weeks now, but, still hear from people that, contributed. One person says, I wouldn't have been able to get into the industry without PR Examples. There are many examples of people like that, because they started writing for it, they gained a knowledge for the industry, they were able then to go to an interview and demonstrate that knowledge and passion for the industry, and it got them a foot in the door. That was the right path for me then. That filled me up then. The team that I was able to build, the incredible team I was able to build, doing great work, with amazing clients. Towards the end of my running radioactive PR, I was very passionate about that. It was the right path until it wasn't. And that's the wonderful thing is, we don't have to stay in the same lane forever doing the same things. So I'm excited about where this goes. What's the one thing I hope someone remembers after listening? Well, after listening to this, it's follow your gut and your passion. I think that's it. As I said, this episode is in pursuit of passion and purpose. I think, you can find your purpose a tiny bit later, but, really think about your passion and passions. And, what does that mean? What does that mean to you? I was worried about doing an episode just to camera by myself. And I needn't have, because quite clearly I'm a chatty man. I got a lot to say. If you meet me in the street, you'll know. I love nothing more than a good chat, and apparently I'm just as at home chatting directly into a camera lens and into a microphone as I am with a person beside me. So I've had fun. This is something I am excited about. Something I can't wait for. Something I can't wait to actualize, to run at, and give it my all. If I run this like a business, it can and will succeed. As I said, I'm quite happy. I always used to say I'm a professional idiot in PR. I changed my name by deed poll after losing a bet to Mr. PR. So my first name was public, my last name was relations. I've lost some of that silliness, some of that ridiculousness that I used to have, pranking people and doing stupid stuff. And I want to find it again. This doesn't need to be po-faced and super serious. I want to find that silliness again. And I think and hope that I can and will. And, the commercials. This right now is an expensive hobby. That's the truth of it. But I'm passionate and it's a purpose. So I'm going to pursue it until I can, find that profit. Jesus, Rich, you're good. I apologise to absolutely no one. I'm going to work it out. I don't know. Yes, I'm monetized on YouTube and Spotify and Apple and all of those good things. Doesn't really pay the bills. That's not what this is about. So I'll see. We'll see. Who knows what opportunities will come up? Who knows who I'll meet? Who knows? Who knows where this goes? And I'm incredibly excited. So thank you for listening. I appreciate your time. I appreciate you giving yourself to this, and I hope that you're coming away from this with something that. Something to ponder, something to think about. I hope you enjoy the episodes this series. I've put an awful lot into them so far. I will continue to give them my all. I research an awful lot for each person. I love those conversations, and I just can't wait to bring you more. So thank you. Feel free to follow, as I said, on Instagram, RichLeePod. I'm trying to do the TikTok thing as well, but I don't bloody get it. So I'll probably just concentrate on Instagram, if I'm honest. RichLeigh, Leigh, pod. As I said, subscribe to the newsletter, become a possibilist. If you go to the site, projectpossiblepod.com, it should pop up, and just pop your email address in there and you'll be subscribed. The first 1,000 going into a draw to win a £100 Amazon voucher. And we're going to be doing loads of giveaways and behind the scenes stuff. And, you'll be the first if you sign up to hear about, live shows and maybe ask questions of guests and things like that. So all that good stuff, go sign up. Otherwise, if you haven't subscribed already, please do. If you're on YouTube, subscribe, tick the bell. I hear lots of YouTubers say that. I think that's what you do. That means you'll be notified when new content comes out. If you're on wherever you listen to your podcasts, most people don't subscribe. They just go back into the platform and, oh, look, it's there. Let me see what else has, come up. Now subscribe, please. That would be amazing. Say nice things, be good to each other, and I'll speak to you very soon. Bye. And there we go. Basically, if you're watching this on YouTube or on Spotify, I've barely moved. I've just changed from a vest into a jumper. This happened. My beard might be slightly different. I don't know. My hair's probably almost exactly the same. But yeah, thank you very much for listening. I hope that gave you something of an insight into me, what I'm doing, why I'm pursuing this passion and purpose. And as I said at the top, if you can support me in any way with sharing this, even if it's just to one person, go on social media, share the link, or WhatsApp it to a friend. That's how we're going to build our little band, our little posse of possibilists. Posse of possibilists, I like that. I always say possibilists pull up a pew, and I kind of like the alliteration of that, the silliness. But that's what you are, a little posse of possibilists. That's what we are, and I think we can do good. Again, super corny, but let's run in the direction of positivity. Let's point in the direction as a few of the guests I've spoken to this season talk about. I ask everybody, anything is possible if, and lots of people so far, I won't spoil it, but it's talking about choosing to be positive and happy and point in the right direction and just run towards success, whatever that looks like for you or for them. I think that's it from me. I've done the whole go to projectpossible.substack.com, subscribe there. That's where you'll join the email database or the email newsletter list, and I'll be contacting everybody every week from there. I always worry with Facebook, Instagram, you're so beholden, all of these things, TikTok, you're so beholden to the algorithm that just to have email addresses, and if you're interested in this, I'm not forcing you, no gun to your head, but if you're interested in this, do sign up, because then I've always got a way to reach you, and it's not always because then I have to do whatever Facebook, Meta, or TikTok, or YouTube tells me I have to do. I can just contact you. So go there, sign up, and I'll always then have a way to reach you with information about the episodes, guests, all that good stuff. So I look forward to seeing you next Monday. Next Monday is a fantastic interview